Matcha Finnegan Palace, Grand Council Chamber. The prince stared at the large screen which was currently showcasing a Yakanti wearing a lavish robe with unknown patterns that meant something to the Avon creature. Two more Ekanti could be seen standing at his flanks, both sentries wearing ceremonial armor and holding scythe-shaped weapons. Around him, the purple-eyed man could feel the barely restrained disdain radiating from the majority of his advisors. It wasn't difficult to discern that same disdain glowing in the six eyes of the silent Ekanti. Internally, the prince could feel his annoyance rising. The blatant show of disrespect the Akanti representative was putting on display by forcing him to wait until he spoke was something he could tolerate. He wasn't new to lengthy, overcomplicated diplomatic overtures, and even if he was, he knew how tense relations between the principality and the hierarchy were. It truly was a test of patience and, to an extent, cordiality. After what felt like a short eternity, the auntie on the screen made a throaty noise followed by a static rumbling before he made his voice known. "I've verified the information you've sent us, Prince," the Yakanti said, and many human eyes narrowed at his casual, almost dismissive tone. "The identification codes have been filed as KIA a long time ago. It is with a measure of elation to see many alive and wishing to return to where they belong." The auntie narrowed his eyes before continuing, "I was under the impression that you were facing some sort of internal conflict. How did you accomplish this?" The prince inhaled deeply, his facial features remaining firm and strong. "It is described in detail in the report, representative. Human forthcomingness without trickery, deceit, and lies etched into each word and action. I find this hard to believe." The representative's eyes opened and moved about in different directions for a moment as the audio stopped translating whatever the hissing, squawking, and high-pitched whistling sound he was making meant. After a few seconds, his words made sense once again. "Assuming everything is, in fact, the truth, then all I can say in reply is to thank you for obliterating so many of those carrion feeders." The Ikanti's posture shifted to a more dignified and attentive one as a show of minor respect. "My name is Akarak Strategos, diplomat and special envoy selected by the supreme hierarchs themselves to conduct talks with you, Prince, and the historian principality as a whole," Akarak said in a marginally less uninterested tone. "I'm a busy man, Prince. Speak your demands." "I demand nothing," the prince replied without hesitation. "Your citizens will be returned to you openly, no recompense is asked, no favor is demanded. Drazen raiders are a plague for both our realms. A gesture of kindness and goodwill speaks volumes given our difficult history, does it not?" "Ah, so that's your angle, a claim of moral superiority." Akarak let out a chirping laugh. "Keep that coin if you wish, Prince, we care not for it. I must inquire, however, where are they?" "They shall depart the Haystrung system soon. Those who wish to return to the hierarchy shall be transported by a vessel of House Ference and escorted by a small group of 4 corvette-class ships and 2 support vessels. I've decided to leave it to the hierarchy to choose the point of delivery as another gesture of goodwill and reassurance," the prince confessed. He'd hoped that the tension in the room would drop, but it had only increased thanks to the difficult attitude of the Inti representative. "I will inform the supreme hierarchs of this. Truth be told, Prince, I remain unconvinced of the purity of your claims," Akarak claimed, eyeing the blonde man with suspicion. "You first claimed that you wish to return our people. Now you're saying that only those who wish to return will be returned. Dare you mock the hierarchy?" he asked provocatively. Glancing to his right, he saw the Marchioness Amelia Finnegan idly fanning herself in an attempt to hide her distaste for the Ekanti, a task in which she and several others were successful. Others were lacking in that regard and looked ready to make their opinions known. Thankfully, everyone, including his advisors, usually more vocal members, were wise enough not to fall for the representative's prodding. "Find insult in my words if you perceive it as such, Strategos. I'm merely informing you that a number of Ekanti expressed no desire to return to the hierarchy. The principality has no policy to accept refugees of any sort who aren't considered part of humanity. We may allow Yakantis to work and live within the principality as long as they don't subscribe to criminal activity. Given these circumstances, if you wish to see them returned, they will be returned," the prince informed amicably. For the first time since the talks began, Akarak paused and genuinely thought carefully about what to do and say next. After half a minute, his reply came. "It is the will of the hierarchy to denounce them. Those who deny the glory of serving the hierarchy once again are not needed. The hierarchy doesn't need weaklings and traitors in its midst. Dispose of them if you wish. Embrace them if you need slaves. The hierarchy cares not about their fate and does not wish to see those traitors returned. The hierarchy returns the gesture of good faith with its own." "The traitors are yours to keep, Prince," said the representative with scorn and disdain directed at his fellow treacherous Ekanti. "In that case, are we in agreement on all terms?" the prince asked, internally sighing in relief. The Ekanti nodded once. "I shall contact you once the supreme hierarchs reach a meeting destination. Akarak paused for a moment, then fixated his gaze on the prince. May your conflict end soon, prince, with your victory. And then the connection ended abruptly. Such insolence coming from a diminutive Xenos, protested Amelia as she closed her fan angrily. My prince, your patience and regal stance are truly inspiring. However, was it necessary for you to brunt such disrespect? Those hierarchy low-lives didn't deem you worthy enough to face you themselves or to appoint a regular hierarch to see you. A necessary step, the prince replied as he suppressed the urge to sigh. With this mutual gesture of cooperation, a message has been sent. The hierarchy will think twice before conjuring the idea of taking advantage of our situation. And we've bought, if nothing else, a crucial opening for future diplomatic talks. Julius willing, perhaps a true non-aggression pact or a cessation of hostilities may yet be achieved. Glances were exchanged, some in approval, but most were skeptical that good relations with the hierarchy could ever be a possibility. The principality and the hierarchy weren't enemies, but opposed each other as a matter of principle. Given their shared history, the prospect of being on real friendly terms was, at best, ludicrous. I shall defer to your will, my prince, Amelia replied, opening her fan once more. What are we to do with the auntie? Lukacs, the prince began, turning to the silver-haired man. Inform Count Jinch that the Yakanti who chose to stay in the principality are to be considered free agents. My liege, can't these Xenos simply be set down on Ho and be done with it? Why must we offer them any further considerations? William Hemstroke asked. Higo is in turmoil. The populace at large would not look kindly upon any Xenos, even if they suffered at the vines of the Drazen, Juliana answered. I care little for the auntie, but I will not deny them either. I'm certain House Ferentes will take the chance to welcome them in one way or another. Much as I loathe the idea of housing more Xenos within our precious principality, I must admit that from our immediate neighbors, the Inti are not the worst option to consider, George Linter exclaimed, gaining a few nods of approval. George, you're a commander of the communications division. Care to explain why the translator failed? Asked Hannah Taro. There was no mistake or failure. That insolent creature spoke in codes unknown to the translator, George replied, frowning. But can they be trusted not to destroy or capture our vessels? The hierarchy deals openly in slavery. There is a substantial number of human slaves within their territories, Vivian Tavis pointed out. A problem for another day, the prince replied as he stood up. I will ask Duke Oscar Ionati to lower the number of raiding attacks upon Ukanti border systems after the exchange is carried out. Everyone, return to your duties. Juliana with me. My prince, Juliana replied as she too stood up and followed the prince, flanked by 4 concealed royal marines. The chamber held a respectful silence until the prince left. Once the doors closed behind them, Juliana relaxed her posture. The hierarchy is, as always, hard to deal with that they are. Regardless, it must be done. Peace with the hierarchy may not be possible, much less so in achieving any lasting alliance. A bridge in understanding, I dare dream of such a possibility. As things are now, I'll take this victory as what it is. My uncle must be stopped first, the Council of Nobles must be freed, my siblings rescued, and my full elevation recognized. Until then, we can only spare the briefest of our attention to exterior politicking. Juliana nodded in agreement, then turned to the blonde man. Do you believe Oscar will heed your request, my prince? The prince sighed tiredly. He can be hard to deal with, a man far more preoccupied with his own interests and personal goals. As long as he perceives a tangible benefit, he'll at least make some effort to adhere to my command. His eyes narrowed, turning to face the older woman. He won't take a side in this conflict, that much we can be certain about. Counting with the support of House Ione or House Emerald would be of tremendous aid, Juliana replied. I still wonder why Sylvia refused to support you, my liege, and has made no efforts to reply to any of our diplomatic requests. She denies any sent from House Draw and their allies in equal measure. I too can only imagine my aunt's motives to take such a stance, but as long as she doesn't recognize Cornelius's claim, it plays in our favor. He paused for a moment. Perhaps this is how she shows her support, to aid in confining this dispute as much as possible and avoid the potential outbreak of a civil war. The Arabians would be most keen on attacking us if that happens, once we're done devastating ourselves. Commonwealth scum, Juliana spat with contempt. Perhaps they are eager to face the full might of House Winfield again and be humiliated in the process. The Arabians are persistent, the prince replied, though it wasn't a compliment. Like cockroaches, Juliana added with a mirthful, mocking smirk. I'd like to see their expressions once our new battle tactics are integrated. Many will complain regarding the Stapleyan assault. Despite his recent achievements, many are quick to complain and push against Wyatt Staples' encroaching power grab, as they call it. Petty fools. I'm most certain many will not be pleased at the proposition, the prince agreed. We must adapt in order to survive. The black ships my uncle procured have already broken the stagnancy in our military doctrines. Many more changes will follow. An unexpected victory has turned into a boon for us thanks to Redford's considerations. We will not allow this opportunity to go to waste or be shut down by those who cling to tradition as an immutable perfect system. Juliana's smirk turned into a pleased smile. I do wonder, however, if the newly elevated Baron will bring us more surprises in the future. What a fortuitous coincidence. Such prospects have crossed my mind as well, Juliana, the prince replied in a soft, playful tone. Wyatt Staples may be on his way to do such a thing. He has 2 knights under his command and a small entourage of loyal commoners in service to one of those knights. Juliana raised an eyebrow in confusion. 2 knights. I believe only the elevated commoner Leopold Dar was under his banner. Do you recall the noble he saved? He has sworn fealty to House Staples under the service of Baron Wyatt Staples through oathbound, the prince revealed with amusement. His name is Declan Oakmoon. Oakmoon? Juliana asked in a surprised tone. Is he directly related to Howland Oak by any chance, my prince? The prince blinked in surprise. Do you know him? And yes, Declan was a bastard until his father recognized him as a legitimate son. Juliana closed her eyes momentarily, grimacing with mild disgust and amusement. Yes, I know who and what kind of person Hohen Oak is. Now it was the prince's turn to be inquisitive. Truly, I must know more. The older blue-haired woman sighed in defeat. I met Howland Oakmoon after I graduated from the academy, my liege. He was a distinguished marine captain at the time, not much older than I was. That sexual deviant had 6 children already. He was only 26 at the time. Did he force himself on commoners or lower-ranked noble women? The prince asked in a slightly more serious tone. Not at all, Juliana replied. That lustful beast had an appetite for the pleasures of the flesh that was only surpassed by his charisma. He never tried to entice me. He knew his place at least. Regardless of his carnal desires, he proved to be a loyal, skilled, and capable officer and a talented duelist. Not only that, he was polite, respectful, and showed care for the commoners assigned to him. I even considered recommending him to become a ROSF, but the sudden death of his late mother turned him into the new head of House Oak, and bound by his code of honor, left the Royal Navy to fulfill his duties. She paused for a moment. That viral beast has spawned no less than 30 children. Most of them, naturally, are bastards. And his wife hasn't acted against him for such blatant tendencies, the prince asked, genuinely surprised. He wasn't blind to the ugly truths of noble society and how almost every marriage was arranged. Procuring heirs was a task performed out of duty and not love most of the time. Jealousy, intra-house power struggles, betrayals, and more were always present threats to consider. A mystery if there ever was one, my liege. Personally, I believe it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that his wife allows this behavior in exchange for personal privileges. Juliana crossed her arms as she walked. Should I be worried that this Declan Oakmoon may corrupt Baron Staples in some shape or manner if he shares his father's lustrid urges? Asked the prince. I wouldn't know, my prince. Perhaps our sisters should be made aware of this and let them decide a course of action, Juliana proposed. Then I shall do that, the prince proclaimed. If we're lucky, this Declan Oakmoon may prove useful, he said, then cleared his mind. There was much more to be done. Valentine Staples' household. Wyatt Staples could only stare in disbelief at the screen before him as it displayed a tactical map. The announcers of a local commoner broadcast talked over the footage, explaining what was going on. He didn't care about that. He couldn't even hear their voices. The moment the name of his son was mentioned, he'd prayed with all his heart that they were talking about some other Wyatt Staples. It was cruel to think about it, to wish that misfortune befell someone else instead of his family. Then again, he was a father of 3. How many others would not wish for the same thing in his place? Winona, he called his wife, and a few moments later she came, shortly followed by Wham. Dad, what happened? Why did you yell? Wham asked as soon as he arrived at their living room, left hand still clutching a small screwdriver. What, dear, what are you watching? Winona asked in a worried tone. Her husband could only point at the screen, his eyes shaking with distress. It didn't take her long to figure out what her husband was trying to say. No, Wyatt, are they talking about Wyatt's? What? Wham exclaimed, dropping the screwdriver as he jumped over the couch, only to land next to his stunned father. Winona followed with weak steps, sitting at her husband's side. Wait, that's a tactical display, like in the simulation games. Can see the famous lone wolf Maximilian Uzurek gave chase to the leader of the composters, Wyatt Staples. One of the announcers said, explaining what was happening on screen. Even without direct visual recordings, the tactical display shows that Maximilian Uzurek had the upper hand at every turn. But Wyatt Staples was able to elude destruction for far longer than it was thought possible, given that a lone wolf was hunting him down. It speaks volumes of his skills as a pilot. Wouldn't you agree? Indeed it does, however, his luck was bound to run out soon. See right now, the announcer said as Wyatt's figure was struck, now showcasing a heavily damaged label atop it. No, Winona whispered, now sitting at the edge of her seat while she and Wart locked hands. Please, Wart, tell me that's not our Wyatt. Has to be, Wart replied. The announcer said Knight Banneret under House Astor, a pilot. There can be no other, he said, admitting the painful truth. Wyatt, Wham said, dropping to the floor on his knees in dread. It was only a matter of time before the lone wolf proved himself superior, said the announcer as Wyatt's icon moved behind a large debris piece. When he emerged on the other side, it was promptly destroyed by Maximilian Userek. The Staples family looked in horror before, to their infinite relief, the announcer continued. Or was he? To their shock, the video rewound a few moments back to show that, yes, the fighter had continued normally while something ejected from it. The name, Wyatt Staples, landed atop the debris while the fighter was destroyed a moment later. In a cunning display of tactical brilliance, the lone wolf who thought himself the hunter was revealed to be the prey. The display expanded, letting everyone see that 3 other signatures were approaching quickly. Knight Banneret Wyatt Staples, in a show of courage and loyalty, played the role of bait to lure the lone wolf right where he wanted him to be. His fighter disabled and at the mercy of his enemies, Maximilian Userek was defeated, added the second announcer. A lone wolf defeated, who could have seen that one coming? I'll tell you who didn't, Lord Maximilian himself, replied the first announcer. He's fine, Wyatt's fine, Wham exclaimed eagerly, much to the relief of his parents. Mom, Dad, you hear that? He beat a lone wolf. Before either of them could reply, a shout echoed outside their house, followed quickly by another and then another, until the voice of Weskel could be distinguished. With a start, Wham jumped to his feet and ran to the entrance, opening the door mere moments before Weskel, helping a winded Mr. Warlow, stepped inside. Winona Wart, Warlow exclaimed as Weskel helped him to the couch. Sitting down, he continued. Once I heard the rascal's name, I came as quickly as I could. My old bones protested until Weskel found me halfway here, he explained as Weskel, out of breath, merely nodded. Wham had disappeared, bringing his brother a glass of much-needed water. What happened? Is Wyatt alive? He beat a lone wolf, Mr. Warlow, a lone wolf, Wham exclaimed, pointing at the screen. See, you ain't messing with me, boy, Warlow asked, seeing the name on the tactical display. He beat a lone wolf on his own. No, not on his own. He set up a trap and acted as bait. The others took it down, Wart replied in a calmer tone. My son barely survived. That careless rascal, Warlow said, unable to hide a small smile. I came as soon as I heard the announcement, Weskel began. Every noble and commoner broadcast is covering it. Princess Clara took back the Haystrung system and defeated Drazen and traitor forces at the same time. I didn't think Wyatt was involved in it until they called his name. Came back as soon as I could. Weskel, your certification for your 20th feather, Winona began, but her second son interjected. Is nothing compared to my brother, Weskel countered, then smiled. But look, he's fine, he's alive, that's all that. Wait, where is he going? He asked as the announcers finished talking and focused back on the footage. Now this is interesting. The following footage is readily available across the Principality's wide network. Go see it yourself if you don't believe what you'll see, an announcer said. The following actions showcase brutality and gore, a true display of loyalty and the power that His Majesty the Prince commands. Indeed, not happy with claiming one outstanding victory by himself, Wyatt Staples decided to board the traitor flagship led by Felicity Centaur, the gallant venture, single-handedly. We've seen this footage beforehand but will refrain from commenting until it is done. The Staples family and Warlow stared in silence as the screen shifted from a tactical display to the first-person view of Wyatt's helmet recorder. They watched as he jumped onto the gallant venture's hangar, only for the carnage to begin. 4 traitors were dispatched within moments, only for Wyatt to loot something from one of the fallen enemies. The display changed slightly, now showing nearby signals. They watched in silent shock as Wyatt carved his path across the gallant venture, killing many, sparing more, and never ceasing his advance. Weskel was shocked by the ruthlessness his brother displayed. Wham's eyes were wide and open. Winona's cheeks were wet with flowing tears as she watched her oldest son take one life after another. Wart could only stare in disbelief, yet at the same time he wasn't surprised. Only Warlow remained impassive. He'd seen his share of how brutal battle truly was. He'd taken plenty of lives before and seen many die, but what he was seeing was different. It was beautiful in its own way, a well-crafted slaughter and utterly remorseless. Wyatt moved with the conviction of a man with an objective, and that left little room for doubt or second-guessing. But Wyatt was not a heartless machine. He spared all those he could and even saved the life of a wounded blue blood. Guess you still have a soft spot, a boy, Warlow thought before Wyatt continued on his way. His duel with Sir Ordega happened and his suspicions were confirmed. He'd seen Wyatt's movements in previous fights, namely against the piece of crap noble he gleefully executed. Now he knew for sure, as if his handguns were not enough of an indicator. It all culminated with the capture of Felicity Center and the maiming capture of Kasimir Khan. When it was done, the screen shifted to show his heraldic shield, a white stag with wings, for a brief moment before the announcers returned. "What have they done to my boy?" Winona asked as tears flowed freely down her cheeks. As if her words were a spell, Wham broke into a run, his heavy, hurried steps echoing inside their home. "Warlow, what have they done to my Wyatt?" "Nothing," Warlow replied. "What you just saw is something Wyatt always was. Whatever possessed him to carry out a boarding action on his own, I know not. They must have forced him, my Wyatt would never." "He wouldn't," Winona exclaimed, her voice growing weaker with each word. "We've always known that Wyatt was changed, Winona," Wart said, entwining his fingers with his wife's in a tight, warm embrace. "We've only now seen the reality of it," he said, leaning to kiss her cheek and wipe away some of her tears. "It's not fair, those monsters broke him," Winona admitted, closing her eyes. Warlow opened his mouth but decided against speaking at the last moment. They didn't need to know about the darkness he'd always seen in Wyatt's heart. The pain, the hatred, whatever drove him to do what he did had to be a matter of personal significance. What exactly, he didn't know. "If it is of any consolation," he began, gaining their attention, "Wyatt has powerful patrons. His armor is some of the best credits can buy. I've only seen Rosps wearing that level of armor and shielding." He paused for a moment. "But those handguns, I saw them 3 times in my life and only once in action. They must be soul snatchers." Warlow swallowed nervously. "Royal Marine-grade weaponry, so that's why he was able to punch through armor and shields like they were nothing." "And he's still a much better shot than I am," Weskel commented, then let out a rueful chuckle. Suddenly, a shout of "Found it" caught everyone's attention before Wham returned to them at full speed. Carrying a data pad, he placed it before them before connecting to the screen. The announcers were replaced by a simplistic map showing how far away Haystrung was from Volantes. "He's about 2 weeks of travel away," he commented, smiling. "Maybe he'll come to visit." "Don't be a fool, boy," Warlow replied. "He won't be able to come just for a visit, no matter how much you want it." "Then we can call him. I mean, we have so many credits," Wham offered. But this time it was Winona who shut him down. "Absolutely not. Your brother Wyatt will call us when he can. The last thing he needs is for us to interrupt him," she declared, and Wham deflated, turning his attention to his data pad. "And his training," Warlow added. "I bet my cane that he's getting the best possible training them blue bloods can afford. Pretty sure he's got plenty of implants too." He hummed deeply and played with his beard for a few seconds. "He's going to need it. He's got powerful allies, but he's made powerful enemies too, many of those. Wyatt's going to be at the center of a shitstorm no matter what he does now, poor lad." Hey everyone, look," Wham suddenly said, and the screen shifted again, this time showing Wyatt's face. Ward and Weskel fainted instantly. Wham remained conscious for several seconds longer until darkness claimed him. His mother caught him in time, resting him against the couch as she stared at her son's face, her mind racing as confusion set in. Finally, she turned to Warlow. The old man stared at the screen for several seconds, then sighed in defeat as the reality of Wyatt's new heterochromatic eyes settled in. "He's rightly screwed, Winona. A blue blood he is now." For Black Ship fans, Akinda is going to republish all the updated chapters on our new r/OpenFi subreddit. I've added a link in the description. Please upvote Chapter 1 and follow the subreddit to be able to read the full story in text form. Several chapters will be added every week. See you there.